Good afternoon, you guys. I apologize for being late today. Instead of doing our early morning presentation, I got up at 4 o'clock this morning and flew halfway across the country. I'm now home in time for tonight's 6th grade play where my daughter is going to be performing outside in the cold because of COVID. But anyway, I'm here and I'm excited to be sharing with you because it's Wednesday. And Wednesday we get to talk about what is actually one of my very favorite topics. And it's one of my favorite topics because it is a pathway, it is the pathway, if you will, to building a thriving practice as a coach. And it is the single biggest thing that I think most of us as coaches back away from. We get nervous, fearful, afraid. Now, I want to just share something with you guys. So I shared with you guys that over the last weekend, I was in a mastermind group, and as a mastermind group that I paid a lot of money for. Let's just say that we've invested so far more than $40,000 in this mastermind group. Now, that being said, as I said before, it is so important that you constantly educate yourself and keep yourself on the creative edge, on the learning edge of your practice. Yesterday when we did the calculations around time and how much time do you need and what do you build into the time that you use in your business, remember I said 20% of that time is marketing, but also creativity and learning. The more you learn, the more inspired you stay, the more you stay on the leading edge of what's next in coaching, the better coach you'll become. The better coach you become, the better you'll be able to stand and hold your value, and the better you'll be able to pull that value into your practice and give that value back to your clients. You know, when I first started coaching, I started taking coaching training in the mid to late 90s, and I studied with Thomas Leonard, who was considered to be the father of life coaching. And Thomas Leonard wasn't a formally trained coach. He came up with this idea. He was a brilliant, insightful projector who knew how to coach executives, how to coach people into fulfilling and maximizing their potential. It was his gift, and it was a gift that he culled in years of experience in the corporate world. Now, his business was basically, he was driving around in an RV with a satellite phone advising people. And that kind of grew into coaching. And then he started teaching people how to do it. But he really wasn't teaching people how to coach so much as he was teaching people how to structure their lives if they wanted to coach other people so that they could turn that advice giving into a practice. Now, I think that was a brilliant idea. And of course, as you know, that is the inception of coaching. I'm going down a rabbit hole here. This wasn't what I planned on talking about, but I'm going to get back to my main point in just a second. However, as coaching as a profession evolved, there was a science that grew behind it. And science, especially the science of motivation, if you will, the science of transformation in the last 20 years, as we've studied things like neuroplasticity and epigenetics and deconditioning and how our choices affect our biology and how we can use our biology to change our choices. You know, the science of coaching and the art of coaching have evolved tremendously since the inception of this profession. And so you really need to stay on the leading edge of your coaching skills so that you stay relevant in the marketplace and that you stay current with your skill set. And, you know, we sometimes think, oh, I don't want to invest the money or I don't want to put the time in. It's imperative. Put that in when you're building your business. Put in that education time. Plus, you know what? It gets you excited and inspired about what you're doing again. And then you get eager to try out the new stuff you learned. Anyway, back to the main point of this story. So I went to this, really high-end mastermind where we were talking about how to coach people, how to really coach people into maximizing their potential and how to structure that process in such a way that you really created infrastructure in your coaching practice, if you have a big coaching practice, as I do, so that your clients really get served at their highest level. So in this training, in this high performance training where people have invested tens of thousands of dollars to be in this mastermind, this exclusive mastermind group, people started talking about their barriers to sales. What was causing them to have hiccups in the sales process? And you guys, what they were saying was things like, I'm just afraid to talk about my price. I don't feel right talking about my price. When I get to the end of the conversation, the enrollment conversation, and I start to have a conversation about the price, I freeze up. When I start to think about, oh my gosh, I'm charging this much money for doing this, I don't want to even have that conversation. I'd rather have somebody else sell the product. Or when they start, when a lot of people were saying, well, you know, I'm a bleeding heart. I just want to give what I do to everybody. So I want you to know that if you're, you know, starting out in your coaching practice, or you're struggling with the marketing piece, or you hate the marketing piece, and remember last week I talked about the relationship between your sense of value and the marketing piece, that this is a universal problem. This isn't just you because you're starting out. There are people in this room who had been coaching for years, who had like major mega coaching certifications, who were like, I don't want to charge for my services. We all struggle with that self-worth piece. And frankly, I think a lot of the reason why a lot of us struggle is because we are service givers. And we do love so big, right? We love our clients. Many of us can intuitively and instantly see the potential of our clients, and we want to just give it all away. And we can't. And you can't for a lot of different reasons. I know you know this. Some of the reasons are really obvious. Like, you also have to make bank because you got to pay your mortgage or your rent and get groceries and put your kid in school, or get a car that's safe to drive, or get your kid a car that's safe to drive. You know, you want to be able to do the things that you want to do for your family. You know, my daughter still hasn't had her baby, 4 weeks late now. You know, she's going to have that thing eventually, and I'm going to have to fly again out to Washington and back. You know, the having that financial foundation is a relief. And it's a relief, honestly, because there were many years where I was struggling to make my practice work for me. So the self-worth piece is essential for the marketing piece. If you can't stand in the value of what you're sharing and selling, and you don't hold that value, and you compromise on it and you give it away, you actually devalue the work that you do, and it doesn't benefit your clients. The clients that you give it away to are going to be the ones that don't value it enough to do the work, because the reality is you can coach them all they want, but if they don't show up, if they don't do the work, you could be in your total brilliance and it won't matter. So you've got to make sure you get their buy-in, which is why it's important for them to pay, because if they don't, they're not going to do the work. Okay. The second thing is, the reason why you want to hold that value is because, as I said, you got to take care of yourself too. You're worthy of it. You deserve it. This is your work in the world. And this work in the world, this part of your heart and soul that you share as part of your practice, is worthy of support. And you deserve to be nourished and loved and sustained so that you can keep doing what you came here to do. All right. So, all right. We're going to talk today a little bit more about the self-worth piece, because it's huge, as I said. And as I said, everybody wrestles with it. And you're going to, even if you think, I got this, I got it handled, every time you scale yourself up, every time you play chicken with yourself, if you will, and push yourself into doing something out of your comfort zone, doing a TED Talk maybe, writing a book maybe, posting a brand new podcast maybe, doing your own YouTube channel maybe, doing your first human design reading, whatever it is for you, every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone, that little self-worth monster sometimes comes sneaking back. And then we start to not only doubt the value of our work and the value of what we do, but we also start to devalue, potentially our client relationships, and we put our practice at risk. So in the way that I teach human design, the chart itself and all the gates connected to the centers give us a lot of insights, codes, if you will, codes that help us look at how can we bring out the highest expression of the centers. So when we look at the will center, which is really where the seat of self-worth lives, our sense of value lives in the will center. if we look at the gates in the will center, those gates actually give us some insights into what we might need to do personally on a personal level so that we can be better marketers and better service providers and sustain ourselves more strongly and deeply in our practice. That what are the things we need to do for ourselves as pathways to elevating our own sense of worth and our own sense of value. So the first thing we're going to look at is the gate 51. Now, when I teach the will center, I talk about the will center, by the way, being the source of resources, okay? When we have the resources, material, energetic, physical, relational, values-based resources, morality, when we have the resources, when we are resourced, we have energy, right? We have will. And it's those resources that we have from being resourced that we then can turn around to give others. If we are depleted in our resources, if we are not ourselves resourced, then we lose our connection to our own value and we compromise that value and we can't stand in our value strong enough in the marketplace to be able to sell. So the first gate we want to look at when we look at recalibrating your sense of worth through the will center is the gate 51. Now, the gate 51 in quantum human design is called the gate of initiation. In traditional human design, we call it the gate of shock, right? And it's that energy that zaps us, right? It's that unexpected twists and turns in the plot lines of our stories that oftentimes pulls the rug out from under us, right? I like to call the gate 51 the cosmic barbed wire fence on your life path. You start to get off your path a little bit. You start to lose connection with your value. That's when the gate 51 sweeps in. By the way, we all have all of the gates. So as I'm talking about this, you might have this defined in your chart, which means you have a consistent theme around this. That doesn't mean you don't have it if it's white in your chart. It just means you have variability. So if you have it defined, it's part of your soul curriculum. If you have it open, it's something you're here to learn from the world around you, and you will pull that energy and you will activate that archetype in your life if you get too far off of your life path. If you get too disconnected from your sense of value, if you take up less space than you're supposed to, or more space than you're supposed to. If you get out of balance with your place in the cosmos, that gate 51 energy is going to come barreling towards you and it's going to zap you, right? And it zaps you and it says, whoop, hold up, time out. You're off your path. What are you doing? You forgot who you are, okay? So you forgot what you're doing. You forgot what your purpose is. You got disconnected from your higher self. You got lost in the scramble to prove your value. Whoop. Stop it, okay? And that those shocking events, if you will, with the 51 can bring us sometimes, that shocking event is really designed to disrupt you. You know, we've been talking about disruption and void and using the void as a way to redefine yourself. That 51 is a disruption. It says, whoop, no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to live this smaller story. You're going to cultivate the right story, the true story of who you are. Now that 51 says, it points to the 25, 51 says, we do better. We cultivate a deeper sense of worth when we are trusting and cultivating a spiritual connection to our purpose. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to church or synagogue and be all religious. I'm not saying that. If that works for you, great. What I'm saying is you've got to have a bigger understanding of that right place, that irreplaceable, vital role that only you can play in the world. And you've got to, through the practice of having some kind of a spiritual practice, reconnect to the bigger meaning of your life. Because when you can be in that place, that bigger meaning, then you start to see your place of service. And when you see your place of service, you don't devalue yourself anymore, because now you're serving your place of service, not yourself. Now you're serving, but not martyring yourself, because you also understand that you're the vehicle for that service and you're precious and inherently valuable as the vehicle for that once-in-a-lifetime cosmic thing that only you can do. So cultivating a spiritual practice is step one, or one of the steps, one of the codes in the will center. Number two, the gate 21. Gate 21 is the gate of self-regulation in quantum human design. In traditional human design, we call it the gate of the treasurer. Self-regulation says you have to value yourself enough, and if you don't, you got to put the structure in place as a way of enhancing your value to regulate yourself, to be generous with yourself. If you're the treasurer, what are you going to give to yourself first so that you have more to give? And when I say self-generosity, I'm talking about not only being generous to yourself on the material level, and that's, if you go to Instagram, everybody posts pictures of their feet and bubble baths, and that sounds great. I'm not saying don't be physically kind to yourself. Don't neglect yourself physically. Take yourself on a spa day, or if you don't have, if you're not into spas, or you're like too freaked out about COVID, go get some bath bombs at Whole Foods and drop them in your tub, right? But the real thing is not just being generous to yourself on the exterior. You gotta be generous with yourself on the interior. Is your internal and external environment generous to yourself? Are you treating yourself the way you would treat other people? And because this is also self-regulation, it's also about cultivating a practice of self-generosity, getting really dialed into, how am I talking to myself? Oh my God, I'd never say that to anybody else. Getting really dialed into, what are you allowing in your environment? If you're being generous with yourself and you walk into a room where somebody degrades you or talks down to you or devalues you, turn around and get out, right? You don't need to be in that environment. That's not being very generous with yourself when you rationalize and settle for being in that space. Set good boundaries for yourself. Take care of yourself. Hold that space in place for yourself and make it a practice. And by the way, you guys, don't focus on all of these at once. Just pick one gate and then work on the next gate and the next gate. So maybe you're going to pick the gate 21 and say, okay, I'm going to practice being self-generous. I'm going to take care of myself and create an internal and external environment that really supports my value. The third thing, the third gate is the gate 40. So the gate 40 in quantum human design is the gate of restoration. Notice there's a re in there, restoration. We restore, restock, resupply, resource ourselves when we restore our personal being. This is really making sure, beyond just being generous to yourself, that you are taking the pause. Remember, the Will Center has rest built into it, that you are actively building into your life those pauses, those places where you are resting, where you are in respite, when you are really taking a pause from the pushing, from the hustle, and restoring your own connection to yourself and your energy. Because in that alone time that comes with that restoration in the 40, we then restore ourselves, and then we're better able to go back out into the community and share what we have, share who we are, right? And then last but not least, the gate 26. So the gate 26 in quantum human design is called the gate of integrity. This is where a significant portion of the immune response lives. This is where the B cells and the thymus are regulated. So we've got, immune response here. This is a place where if we get depleted, if we get out of integrity, we actually have an immune response or immune deficiency. And there's science to back this up, by the way. So our trauma is stored in the body, and the trauma, the memories we have actually impact our immune response. So if you are actually having a memory, you have a memory of an event that made you angry, you're not even in it anymore, you're just remembering it, it affects your IgG and IgE immune response. Okay, the memory itself triggers the immune response or the lack of immune response. So the gate 26 says, if you have trauma and you have not healed that trauma, it's going to create in you a disruption that's going to impact your sense of value. And later on in a couple of weeks, I'm going to talk about integrity and how integrity plays into leadership. And if you don't heal your integrity, all the layers of your integrity, it actually impacts your ability to lead yourself, your life, your clients, the world. So if you have not healed any trauma that you have experienced in your life, and I have two different systems that I use. I have a human design, quantum human design that we use in coaching, and I have a much more complex and rich healing system that we use called quantum alignment system that integrates the emotional freedom techniques, the tapping, with quantum human design. And one of the things we tap on is clearing old patterns that are stored in the hippocampus and the amygdala based on trauma. Trauma, the way that I define it, is any event that has caused you to lose connection with your sense of value and lose connection with your right place in the world. Sometimes the things that are traumatizing to us, and I'm not talking about like the death encounters, the sexual trauma, the violence. I'm not talking about that kind of trauma. That is a kind of trauma that is not a coaching trauma. That goes into therapy, and that has a very specific place and is a very important thing. If you have any of those things going on, you really owe it to yourself, if you haven't, to really heal those things. You deserve to be healed from those kinds of traumas. And over the course of our lives, we also experience little traumas, and the body at a certain point sometimes can't tell the difference between a big trauma and a little trauma, because the body itself is designed to be in integrity with your authentic identity. And if you lose connection with who you are, your right place in the world, and the value of your right place in the world, then it actually starts to impact our sense of integrity, and we feel traumatized. Now, a good coach is going to help you get through those kinds of traumas. A good coach is going to give you a plan of action to start rewriting some of those stories, and reframing some of those experiences, so that you can move through those experiences where you've lost connection with your sense of value in your right place in the world, and push you deeper into an alignment with your purpose, so you can claim your value, so you can stand strongly in the energy of who you are, and you can then go back out and sell your services, market the brilliance of what you have. So I'm just going to review just briefly the 1, 2, 3, 4 codes on the Will Center that I would want you to I want you to explore when you contemplate your own sense of value. Code number 1. Do you have a consistent spiritual practice that allows you to connect to the bigger meaning and the purpose of your life? It connects you to your place of service in the world. And do you value yourself as a vessel for that place of service? Number 2, are you being generous with yourself? Are you giving to yourself internally and externally? Are you creating for yourself an environment that supports you sustaining and nurturing your value? Number 3, are you taking the time off, the respite and the restoration that you need to cultivate and strengthen your energy and your sense of value? And number 4, do you have anything going on, any traumas, any places where you've lost connection with your sense of your right place in the world and your sense of value that you need to reframe, rewrite, or heal in order for you to really step into the depth and the power of your value? It might not sound like that has anything to do with marketing, but that actually has everything to do with marketing. Because when you have a strong sense of value, you can actually begin to use, with great meaning, the most powerful marketing word in the world. And that word is the word you. When you're marketing, you're talking about your client. You're in service to your client. You don't have anything to prove if you've healed your sense of self-worth. And so your marketing becomes focused on your client. You greet them when they walk in the door. You greet them when they email you. Your webpage becomes a rolled out red carpet for your potential client, and they step onto that red carpet and they feel welcomed, and they feel called in. They feel seen, and they feel heard, and they feel compelled to work with you because you're their person. You, the word you, is the most important marketing language you can use. And if you don't have anything to prove, if you're standing in your value, then all of your energy can be focused on how can I better serve, without any kind of underlying motivation, without any kind of fear of imposter syndrome, without any kind of fear that somebody's going to pull your cover and they're going to see that behind the big loud face there's a little tiny person that's cowering behind you, pulling all the levers and flashing all the lights. You are here for a reason. You are a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic event. You are called to serve the world in the way that only you can call, and you have nothing to prove and everything to gain from stepping onto your path and into your value. So next week, we'll actually get down to some strategic things around marketing. We'll get really grounded with our dialogue, our conversations about marketing. Take good care of yourselves. Tomorrow, Thursday, we'll be talking about coaching topics. We've been talking about manifesting. We've been talking about creativity and how we create. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about some things you can do to help your clients start shifting, start making those changes that they need to shift their point of attraction. All right. Have a great afternoon. I'm off to the school play, so take good care of yourselves. I will talk to you tomorrow.